All right, good morning, everyone. Wow, that's really loud. I'd like to call the May 23rd meeting, the Old Town Local Advisory Committee, to order. Please join committee member Anderson as she leads us in the flag salute. Thank you. Do we have any public comments today? Oh, I'm sorry, let's do roll call first.
Certainly. Committee member Anderson? Farbeck?
Did you say Farnbach? I'm sorry, I'm here.
Nunn? Here. Chair Wilson?
Here?
And Uriarte? Here. We have one excused absence from Chair No.
Thank you so much. Do we have any public comments not related to, or public comments on non-agenda items today?
We have not received any.
All right, seeing none, I'll dispense with the reading of the public comments section. Moving on to the consent calendar. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered to be routine, and all will be enacted by one roll call vote. There will be no discussion of these items unless members of the committee request specific items to be removed from the consent calendar for separate action. A total of 30 minutes is provided for each member of the public to address the committee on items that appear on the consent calendar. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. Public comments may be made in person in the meeting by submitting a speaker card to the committee secretary. Speaker cards will be called in the order they are received. All audio and visual use is prohibited. Public comments may also be submitted by email for inclusion into the record. Email comments must be received prior to the time the item is called for public comments and submitted to Old Town Local Advisory Committee at temeculaca.gov. All public participation is governed by the council policy regarding public participation at meetings adopted by resolution number 2021-54. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of April 25th?
I'll make a motion.
I'll
Thank you.
second.
Second?
Yes.
All right, thank you. As for approval for the motion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Nope. Thank you. So the motion passes, which a motion made by Commissioner Anderson and seconded by Commissioner Nunn. So moving on to business items. Members of the public may address the committee on any business items that appear on the agenda. Each speaker is limited to 5 minutes. Public comments may be made in person at the meeting by submitting a speaker card to the committee secretary. Speaker cards will be called in the order received. All audio and visual use is prohibited. Public comments may also be submitted by email for inclusion into the record. Email comments must be received prior to the time the item is called for public comments and submitted to Old Town Temecula Advisory Committee at temeculaca.gov. All public participation is governed by council policy regarding public participation at meetings adopted by resolution number 2021-54. So we're going to switch the order this morning and start with receive and file a presentation on the Altair specific plan. Can I ask for a staff report?
Yes, so we're lucky enough to have Colin here with us today from Brookfield, who's the project manager for the entire Altair project, and he's going to give the committee a presentation, overview of the project and the status and where it's going from here. So I'll ask him to come on up and go ahead and give the presentation.
Thank you.
Our audio is working on the speaker for the
Check.
podium.
There
Is
we
that
go.
better?
There we go.
Okay. Good morning, committee. My name is Colin Cook. I work with Brookfield Residential. We are the developer for the Altair project. As Luke mentioned, we are here today to give a brief presentation on the project and answer any questions you might have. So I'll briefly run through the presentation and we can page back if necessary if you have specific questions, and hopefully do our best here to get you a good understanding of where we're at today and where we intend to go with the project. Shall I initialize the video from here? Yeah. Sorry, just 1 second. It's loading slowly. Now it's up. All right. Everyone can see the presentation okay? All right. So we've got the Altair development, which I'm sure you have all seen, going on up on the hillside above us. This is kind of a general location or orientation, if you will, for the project. This is taken from some of the specific plan documents and some of the original entitlement documents. It's really this long linear stretch that is the western edge of Old Town as we know it today, extending slightly up the hillside and to both the north and south of Old Town proper. The orange areas are residential villages, and some of those have been somewhat conceptualized. Others are still yet to be further conceptualized. In here, we also have some darker green areas. I recognize it's a little bit hard to make them out, and I don't think I can point to them, but those are parks and open spaces. And then along the far western edge, in a slightly less opaque color, you've got lighter green, and that's all open area to be conserved. And that totals about 88 acres. And then we've got some streets throughout, and very importantly, that dark white line along the western edge is the Western Bypass Corridor. That's a major arterial that will connect 79 South to Rancho California, Diaz, and other streets at the north end there. And then we've got some smaller connecting roads transecting the site. Those move through the site as collector streets and then also connect us to Old Town at First Street. And there's a cul-de-sac down there, and also we'll be making a signal improvement at First and Pujol. So that's it in a nutshell. Moving on to the next slide. Let me here. This slide better indicates the phasing of the project. Generally speaking, we're moving north to south as the phases proceed or unfold, if you will. The north being at the right of the screen there, left being the south. And we're starting with villages A and B, and then we'll be proceeding into the core of the development. That's C North and C South, and then on down D, E, F, and maybe someday G. So generally that's how that lays out, and you can see the signals indicated there. Those will be the major street enhancements and signal enhancements. Maybe notable at the very southern end there, we have a revegetated fill site that really doesn't do a good job of delineating that entire area that's going to be preserved. There will be some fill dirt that's left there, but that ultimately is revegetated and reestablished as native habitat. And moving to the next slide here. So this is a quick look at our work to date. As you've probably seen, we've been up there for about a month now. This is what we call our mass grading phase. So we're up there with heavy equipment, really constructing what we call super pads, or what will be the future residential villages and streets. We will move from that into rough grading, and that's where you'll begin to see the home sites take shape and streets really begin to form. Looking at this, you can see that we end up with something like this, if my slide will go. second. There we go, okay. So after we've done our rough grading, brought in street improvements, ultimately the home sites look something like this in villages A and B, and you catch a snippet of C1 and C2, 3, or C North there to the south. Moving to the next slide, a little bit about the timing. We've started our grading. Grading, if all goes according to plan, really will wrap up probably in October. I've got an extra month in here just in case. You never know what we're going to run into. We'll begin to progress south to about the center point of the site with our grading and stop there. We've really broken the site into 2 phases of grading, phase 1 and phase 2. As the grading progresses south, we'll move in behind it and start doing additional infrastructure work, construction work. That's the laying of utilities and ultimately street improvements. This all supports hopefully what is a home building start in May of 2025. That would be villages A and B would be our initial starting point, and progressing probably quickly into village C North. We anticipate homes will take 5 months or so to construct, and that's a grand opening sometime in late 2025. Public Park will follow that just shortly, and then Western Bypass is a ways out. We're looking into 2028 before we have an operational Western Bypass, and that's really that's really a timeline that's dictated by the bridge. That bridge has some entitlement work that accompanies it, and those are long lead items. We're working with various regulatory agencies, and things just don't move real quickly with them typically. So, to give a little more color to our conversation about the parks, we've added a concept here. This is something we've been working closely with the city team on, and this again is about the center of the site. This is a 5-acre public park. There's a connection point down at the east end, which is Main Street. Today, Main Street exists as a dirt road there between the church and some older residential structures. We aren't reflecting that here on our plan, but we'll be enhancing Main Street there as a connection point. And then there's a grand staircase that will lead east to west up into the 5-acre park. It will proceed under a bridge, a small bridge, which is the A Street Bridge, and into the greater park area. The park as designed here really closely follows the specific plan. So conceptually, we've got an open space, some sort of possible theater structure at the west end, adds potential for lawn seating, musical acts, theater nights in the park. We've also got a dog park here and also a play area and play structures for children. Additionally, as you move up through the stairs and through some of the connecting points, there's some passive interactions which we haven't fully defined, but there'll be play structures, large boulders, gardens, things like that to really enhance the park as a whole.
Colin, if I could just add one
Please.
quick thing, just on orientation for where this is. So if you imagine yourself standing on the steps of City Hall and looking directly down Main Street, you would be looking right up this center staircase up to the top of the project. So it's kind of almost like a counterweight to City Hall. So it's like an extension, a non-vehicular extension of Main Street.
Thank you, Luke. That's very important. The park is designed to accentuate the view from Old Town as well and be inviting and have a grand appearance and also a welcoming appearance. Excuse me. At the top there, thank you. So this is what it might look like. Please bear with us. This is a rendering and candidly not a fully formed rendering, but one we've been working closely with the city team on, and this shows that staircase leading up. Also, some more accessible pathways that kind of crisscross back and forth there and take you up to that bridge I mentioned earlier. And again, this is the start of our design process, and we'll be moving into this in the coming months more feverishly. And here's a look at the villages A, B, and C as we've designed them today. We are working with the planning team, public works teams and all various departments, fire, building, on getting these designs to a point where they're ready for approval. We anticipate these will be approved in the coming months. And then, as to my earlier point, we'll start construction next spring. This is a rendering we had done probably about a year ago to further illustrate that view from City Hall. This shows some of the houses, some of the supporting wall structures, but really doesn't do a good job of illustrating the park. That's something that we'll bring into this rendering sometime in the future. You kind of have to use your imagination. This is what potentially might be Village A street scene. So getting into the less dense areas of the project, we have some single-family detached and also some duplex homes proposed here. And that's what I have for you. So thank you.
Excellent, thank you so much. Do any members of the committee have any questions on this item? Please go ahead.
I see that the bypass is targeted for 2028, completely understood. But what will be the internal traffic plan, circulation plan to handle all of the vehicles that will, be coming into the area? Will the community have self-sufficient parking for its homes and its parks and any potential recreation venues?
Let me try and take those one at a time.
Okay.
Are you asking specifically about traffic in the interim before Western Bypass was created?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, there are a number of conditions that were thoughtful and applied to this project that did contemplate the fact that there's going to be more traffic before Western Bypass was operational. This includes widening of Rancho California, widening of Vincent Moraga, the connecting streets that would connect at First Street and lead up into the project, the addition of the signal at First and Pujol, some signal enhancements throughout the city, including as far out as Santiago and Inez, and also Rancho California and Old Town Front Street. So there is an interim plan, and it was well thought out, and we certainly want to get Western Bypass operational. In fact, we'll have 2 lanes of Western Bypass operational as soon as the bridge is ready, and then the additional 2 lanes would come in at a later date.
Okay. Because right now, just trying to get into Temecula is just such a challenge. And get in and through, and you really have to be strategic just to get around town. And then I see this, consistent, which I'm wonderful. It's happy for the city. I think your project is beautiful. But I do worry about getting from point A to point B.
Certainly.
Will the Western Bypass eventually connect to Murrieta? Or are we, I think that's
That's beyond the
been
scope
quite
of
a
your project, I
condition
think.
with Murrieta for a long time. They didn't want our traffic in there.
Yeah, yeah, it's unlikely.
Really?
So the Western Bypass starts at Temecula Parkway. It's going to go up around the project. It's going to connect over at Rancho at Diaz. Diaz has been realigned to be the Western Bypass north of Rancho, and will be improved here shortly to reflect that.
Okay.
It's going to go up to the boundary with Murrieta, and that's where Washington begins in Murrieta. We have no indication that Murrieta wants to connect that. But what will happen in the mid to long term is where Diaz terminates at the city boundary, there will be a right-hand turn and a bridge that goes over Murrieta Creek and connects into the French Valley Parkway,
Okay.
directly into the French Valley Parkway.
Okay.
So you'll be able to go up Diaz and just go right over to the freeway,
Okay.
if that's, or go over to Jefferson and go north, if you don't want to get on the freeway.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Then I had another question too. In the housing that you're proposing, is there any low-income housing considerations? Are there any low-income housing considerations?
Certainly. So this project does not have an inclusionary component to it.
Okay.
We are designing it to be a project that caters to all life cycles, and we do have attached higher density product, or homes, if you will, and typically those homes come in at a more affordable level. So they're townhomes, they're 2 or 3 story, and they'll be priced accordingly to the market, but they typically are much more affordable and approachable than what we see, say, It's some of the bigger suburban.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the three-story townhomes. There are some in Marietta. They're not affordable at all. Right now, they're running between about $500,000 each, you know? So that's another topic for another day, but it was just one of my questions for today. And that's all I have. It looks like a beautiful project, and I wish you well.
Thank you. And I did want to touch, you asked about the parking as well.
Yes.
So the product does have parking standards that we're adhering to. We're actually exceeding those parking standards. Every home has a two-car garage, so we're handling a lot of the parking in the garages, but there's ample parking throughout the sites and also on the streets, plus an additional 2 parking lots at this point in time for the rec center and the park.
In the product type similar in Marietta that I'm familiar with, they started off not enforcing parking, so that was open 2-car garages and open parking, and they now have enforced that, and there's not enough room for the homes to park, and they're towing cars. So it's kind of an upheaval in that community. That community is called the Ridge at Cal Oaks. It's by the Target Center. And it's, the residents are very unhappy. So just special considerations for that, because it's expensive for a homeowner to be towed.
Well, I can tell you that we usually provide conditions to multifamily projects where they're required to allow, people have to park in their garage.
Yeah.
So if they
it's-
don't, then it becomes an HOA issue.
Sure, but if you're a 4-bedroom with 3 teenagers, you have 5 cars, right? So that's where the issue rises, not so much with a couple living there, but with a family with drivers. And that's where it's really a point of contention. So just special thought for that, because 2-car garage doesn't fit my family either. So that's all I had. So good luck and thank you.
Can I just make one quick comment too? Just before any other questions, this project is coming to you kind of after the fact, right? It was approved in 2016, so I appreciate all the comments. And typically, if there's going to be another project that comes forward, your concerns will be added to the mix before it goes for approval. This one is just, it's been approved for years and years, so it's a little bit kind of backwards. But I just wanted to put that out there. Is that it's been approved for years. Otherwise, if this project was coming forward, we would certainly be adding all of these comments into the mix for the developer to take into consideration.
And Ms. Anderson, they don't fall on deaf ears. We are working closely with Scott Cooper and Elsa, sorry, I'm drawing a blank, on parking and other enforcement requirements. Those have been built into the CCNRs, and we anticipate enforcing those from day one. So they won't be an afterthought.
A lot of the streets will have on-street parking as well.
Absolutely.
In addition to the garage.
Yeah, additional out. Yep.
Thank you, Commissioner Anderson. Any other questions, knowing that this is an approved project?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment, if I
Please.
may. So this is nice that we're going to have a beautification project at the western end of Main Street, and it's reminiscent of our Zev Buffman project of the 1990s, where there were going to be stairs up onto that knoll and a pretty area for the town. I think it will enhance the beauty of Old Town, which we should always be thinking about.
Thank you. Any other questions? Nope. Commissioner Nunn?
Hopefully this is quick, but I have to ask it. I know with this project being very close to a lot of vegetation, close up to the hill, I wanted to know if there's any plans for safety, emergency, in case of fire or anything like that. Is there an emergency process in place set up for, if God forbid, anything were to happen up in that area?
Yeah, great question. Fire is something we think about all the time here in California, especially here in Temecula. So the project definitely took into account fire behavior and potential wildfire concerns. One of the big buffers we have is Western Bypass Corridor, which is a very wide street and acts as a sizable buffer zone. Above that, we have sizable cut slopes that ultimately will be revegetated. It won't be nearly as dense as what you see on site today. but there will be some regrowth there, and then ultimately that will all be maintained by the HOA, so it's not just going to go completely wild. When we get into the conservation area, the green space on the western edge, we really won't ever touch that, and that's going to remain as it was. So that will always be a wildfire concern, but the project absolutely respects all fire requirements. We've worked closely with Elsa on that. 2 points of ingress and egress, ample hydrants throughout, hardened structures, they'll all be 7A, which is a building requirement for those structures. So we're doing what we can, and if we can do more, we're open to having those discussions as well.
Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you. Any additional questions? Commissioner Anderson?
One of our challenges in California and in this area in particular is fire insurance, getting it.
Mhm.
We can't. Have you checked into the insurability for the homeowner?
We have. So this is something I think about every day and is absolutely a huge concern for us. Building these homes, if we couldn't sell them, that would be catastrophic for us and for California. Because of the California Fair Plan, the focus that Commissioner Lara has put on that and enhancing the capacity of that plan and looking for future private bonding to support it, we feel confident that that plan will be in a good place in 2025-26. All the current homes that are contemplated in villages A and B would be Fair Plan eligible. It gets a little more dicey when you get into the attached product.
I'm familiar with California Fair Plan, and it's very expensive, and it's not an all-inclusive policy. Does it cover fire but not liability?
With the Fair Plan, you have to have what's called a difference in conditions policy.
Right.
So typically, you're paying for two policies.
Right.
I, as a resident of Temecula who live in the rural part of town, pay for this and understand that it is not the plan I want, but it's
Right.
the only choice I have. The insurance state of California is a sad place right now.
Yes.
We're no more happy with it than probably you are. But we are working closely with the state on this and doing everything we can to come up with a solution.
Can I give you an example?
Certainly.
We own a building in Old Town. It's a mixed-use building, and 3 years ago, our insurance was $6,000 a year. It's now $53,000 a year, and we do have to have the two policies. And unfortunately, it's because of that mountainous area where you're building. That might be a buffer and advantage to us, but I do worry about your homeownership. So I am grateful to hear that you guys are working with the insurance commissioner, because it's a very expensive, we are in a very expensive position right now as owners. So thank you so much.
Of course, I'm sorry to hear that. That's frustrating.
Thank you. Any other questions? Nope. Do we have any public comments on this item?
We have none.
Okay. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Like my colleague, I think it's going to be a beautiful project. Look forward to the green spaces and the public parks. I think it's going to be really great. So thank you so much.
Thank you all for your time.
Right, moving on to our next item, which is the priority ranking of Old Town work items. Do we have a staff report on this item?
Yes, thank you. So this is one of the items I've been talking about a little bit since we had our first meeting, and it's oriented around kind of setting some priorities that the committee wants to work on, frankly. So what we've done is, and we're hoping this works flawlessly. There's a piece of tech we're going to use, so cross your fingers. But we have put together a list of projects or project areas that, you know, the city would like to see worked on. And we've also added to that list the recommendations of the committee from our last meeting, where you let us know what, you know, your concerns were. And we have a list here, and what we want to do is go ahead and try to rank them, and then kind of establish I wouldn't call it a super formal, but, you know, at least a guidepost for what we need to work on first. I don't want this to get put out there as like it's set in stone. You guys can change this at any time. You want to move things around. But I think it's a good place for us to start for our limited staff resources to kind of be able to say, okay, we have a consensus here on what the top 3 or 5 things are, and we need to focus on those things. So, Matt, do you mind explaining the QR code and how that's all going to work?
Sure, so we put the QR code at your spot at the dais here. It's just like ordering at a restaurant, I guess. If you scan the QR code, it'll take you to a website. You'll see the top, it's I guess, a top 10 list. And then you'll be able to go through that, and you can put those in order by just scrolling, and you can move them.
With your finger.
With your finger to the top. I guess it'd be 1 through 10, so your top priority would be number 1. And then we're able to compile all that live, and we'll see what the top, what shakes out as maybe the top 3, 4 priorities are for the committee. So hopefully that works. Go ahead and scan the QR code. Has it come up for you?
Yes, it works great, actually.
Okay.
It's, and just slide the things up and down, so. And then just click submit when you,
Yeah, just move them to the top.
So I must have done something wrong because it came up with the top sinus and allergy specialists.
Go to your camera?
Oh, just my camera, not my
Yeah.
QR code reader.
No, yeah, just like that.
Okay,
There you go, and you can just move them around.
thank
And
you.
then hit submit when you're done.
Okay, thanks.
It's tech, man, you know?
don't forget to click submit, because we've got 4 responses. We should have 5. Okay, now
Okay,
we've
I
got
think
all
that's
5
it.
in.
Yeah. So it looks like parking, all things parking comes out in first place, public safety, not too surprising there from my perspective. Strategic plan to include signage, community feedback program, okay, creek walk. So I think that's the top 5 right there. Grants, revenue streams, bid, hotel marketplace, Altair, and Parklands program. Is there anything in that top 10 that you thought of after the fact, or that is glaring omission that you are thinking of right now that we don't have on here?
I think when we consider the parking, we need to be aware that the Postal Service, Amazon, UPS, they don't have a place to park for deliveries. So right now, they're parking in the middle of driveways, they're parking in the middle of the street, they're parking in maybe some private parking spaces. So I think we need to consider not only the parking, overnight parking for residents, but also for the services. And when we think about charging for parking, are you going to charge a plumber who's going to come service a plumbing program? Are you going to charge an air conditioning guy when they arrive to do their service maintenance? Will the businesses be able to have their goods delivered without having to pay parking? Will we, if parking is going to be, paid parking is going to be required for everyone, will the businesses lose patrons? Will they lose delivery options? Will build?
I don't think right now we really need to get into the details of the
But
individual
they are-
items. We're
but
just
they
going
are-
to add or take away any items right now.
I understand, but as they think and prioritize, they need to make sure that the issues are being addressed before we are given a
But
package to
we'll
approve.
address those issues as a group.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, right now, we're really just looking for right now if there's any items to be added to this list or any items that, that you think that we've missed. We're not going to dig into these items just yet, but we will as a group as we move forward. No? Okay, thank you.
Okay, I mean, I don't know if there's any comments on this, but I think this has been good, and we kind of solidified what we need to focus on, and we will do that. So I think that completes this agenda item.
Perfect. So having no further business items on the agenda, we'll adjourn the meeting.
One last thing before we adjourn, just
Yes.
an announcement. The State of the City, May 30th. I know many of you are going to be there anyways, but if you aren't going to be there or weren't planning on it, an invite has been sent to you, and the city would be happy to have you, and we have a spot for you. You can let Denise know if that's what you want to do. So we hope to see you there.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah, today hopefully, because I can tell you that, as Brooke probably knows, this is going to be an extremely well-attended event, maybe the most attended ever. So we're very much looking forward to that. All right, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So seeing no further items, we adjourn the meeting.